Hi, I'm Kevin Paulin.
And I'm Ben Backus.
And welcome to the Falling Up Podcast, where we have conversations about turning obstacles into opportunities. And on today's episode, we have the pleasure of being joined by Miss Larice Harvey and Tracy Bernardi.
Larice and Tracy are the co-founders of Once Incarcerated, a 501c3 nonprofit organization aimed at helping and empowering individuals returning from incarceration by providing a wide range of services and empowerment classes, including Once Incarcerated anonymous meetings that help link the formerly incarcerated individuals together and help with shared experiences. In addition, both of their stories were shown in a book published by the American Bar Association, Suicide and Its Impact on the Criminal Justice System.
So without further ado, welcome to the Falling Up Podcast. Yeah, let's get it shaken.
So I was reading the questionnaire and something. Our kind of tagline for the Falling Up Podcast is how helping individuals turn obstacles into opportunities. Mm-hmm. And something that you had that was really great was paving my pain into power.
Yes, that is my tagline. Do not steal it. I will sue you.
I read that and I was like, let's go. That is.
I won't get sued now.
How'd you come up with that?
Lived experience. I wrote a book, Button's Journey, my first 2 years living with PTSD. And while I was writing it, it just came to me like, I have learned through every obstacle, every adversity in my life to just pave my way, pave my pain into something powerful, something inspirational, something that solidifies a beacon of hope. And it wasn't just for like, oh, I did this for people. No, I needed that for myself, so I became that for myself. So then Tracy said we're going to use that as our one of our webinar things that we'll do, like we do occasionally, stories of paving your pain into power.
Yeah, that quote really it stood out, and I was like, I like that. I like that a lot. So can we take a step back and you kind of just let our listeners know who you are? We'll definitely get into how you paved your pain into power, because I think that's the meat and potatoes of this evening. But can we just take a step back and kind of let you guys can introduce yourself to the listeners?
Sure can. You want to start, Trey?
Okay. So my name is Tracy Bernardi, and I became incarcerated in 1993, and I just turned 19. I was involved in a gang. I didn't know any better, to be honest. I lived in like a real small town, and I wasn't exposed to any of that in the town. I was really naive, and I got involved in a gang. I really saw them as the family that they portrayed themselves for outsiders to become insiders. It seemed like it was something that I had been missing my whole life, like people that I felt like would stand by me and support me and all that. So I joined the gang, and I quickly found out that it wasn't what it seemed like it was, and it was too late to get out. And I eventually ended up being a part of a crime that led me to jail, and I ended up with a 30-year sentence, which I served 23 years off of. But so I went in 1993, and I was very haven't been a part of. I wasn't the person that committed the actual murder itself, but having been a part of it and having a sentence like that, I pretty much thought that God had forsaken me and like I wasn't, loved or, whatever. I still believed that there was a God, but I just didn't think that, he had any interest in me. And a little while after I got there, this one comes through, Miss Larice Harvey. And this was when in 1993 we were able to wear our uniforms, our regular clothes. And so the reason I say this is because I'm trying to paint this picture. We're in this unit. It's a youthful offenders unit, and we're all back in those days. Now, mind you, the kids our age wore like baggy pants and like starter jackets and starter everything. And
And those adorable button-up jumpers.
The little bodysuit jumpers. And that's how I dress. It was baggy pants and stuff. And this lady comes in. She's 21 years old. She's 2 years older than us. And she comes in, and even though we're in prison and we're getting our clothes from home, she's wearing long skirts with a Bible under her arm, walking around the unit like a mother goose, like lecturing us, trying to get us to do good. And we're like an orphanage of bad kids that don't want to do, we're already in jail, we're angry, and she's really essentially is somebody that helped me get my faith back. And help me believe in, and she could tell you through her story. I'll let her tell you a little bit about her story, how she helped me get my faith back.
So, who we are two formerly incarcerated females who met in York Correctional Facility in 1993. And she's a youth offender. I was a first-time offender. And we both had murder charges. Hers was felony capital murder. She was facing 30 years. Mine was murder in the first degree because my case was self-defense, and because I was a single black female with 2 children on welfare, and I lived in a highly drug-infested area, Willow Street, New Britain. And Connecticut doesn't have a real self-defense law, meaning if you have ability, if you're outside and somebody's walking up on you, attacking you, the state of Connecticut says if you hurt that person or kill them protecting yourself, that you are at fault, not them. So you go from being the victim to the perpetrator just by your natural instincts to survive. And that's what happened with me. The girls came to my 21st birthday, fighting over a guy who I wasn't dating. Pretty much he lied and said that I liked him. And the real reason is because although I was 21, I just turned 21, although I had a 5-year-old and a 1.5-year-old, I was getting ready to go to Ohio and sign up for Akron U. I was raised up middle class America. I as an adult or young adult, I wasn't even an adult, okay? I was still like, after all the trauma I experienced, I was still a child myself, but I had some maturity. And I didn't think that I was going to get arrested for protecting me and my kids. And I always felt that it was racially biased. Although my prosecuting attorney was black, he's what I call a self-hating black man. So Carl Taylor, yes, he's now a judge, taking away kids from black and brown mom and dads in New Britain. I don't care. I'm sticking him out there because he's a cruel person and should not be a judge or in anything that has to do with criminal justice because he's biased up and down. Anyway, he decided he's going to make an example out of me, and he never plea bargained. He just said, you're going to be 20 to life. That's all I have to offer her. So I said, I'm going to trial. I had nothing to lose. And that's what I did. I walked around with a Bible, and I said, no matter what, there is no way God is going to make me stay in jail for the rest of my life. When I was the victim, they came to my house. She had the gun. She had the big 2x4. And my baby's bassinet was right behind me where she was getting ready to shoot the gun. So are you kidding me? I'm in jail. I'm on trial. My life? That's what Connecticut did to this black mother, who did what every black mother said she would do. If anybody comes, and any mother in the world would say, anybody comes after my kid, then I will do whatever it takes to protect my children. I did that, and I got sentenced to 10 years. And that time at Tracy.
I want to interject for our listeners. I'm from Jersey, but when I moved to Connecticut, I moved to New Britain. So I got a lot of peoples out there, Mount Pleasant, Pinnacle Heights, all that. So when you mentioned Willow Street in the 90s, I just want our listeners to know, Willow Street in the 90s?
I was in a lot of shootouts as an innocent bystander walking to the store. That kind of environment.
Yeah, it was different. It was different. Willow Street was very different in terms of, like you said, drug infestivity, gang activity, salas, all that. So yeah, it was active. So I really want to paint that picture because we got listeners that not familiar with New Britain, but New Britain was definitely active.
Hard hitting, never quit New Britain.
You already,
and I had a reputation of being a fighter, and but also being a person with a kind heart and respectful. So that never changed because who you are, regardless of where you are at the core, that goes with you. And that's how I've always been. So when I was in jail, the only thing I did was really work on my foundation of faith. It was very important. And my faith has evolved. So I call myself a Christian spiritualist because I believe in Jesus Christ, but I also believe in Egyptology, Buddhism, Hinduism, Jewish Catholic, what do they call that? Catechism, what is it? Catholicism, because each one I have discovered, even atheists who believe in that they have the power to create, their own realities. We all of the religions have this base foundation that way you think about your reality is how your reality becomes. So in the Bible, God said, He is love. And what is love? And the heart chakra is green, and it means divine love. And so that's why in jail, God gave me my favorite color, green. And so as you can see, everything's green, except for my grade 8 jacket. We'll get into that in a sec. So who I am at my core is a very kind, caring person with a lot of faith, a lot of powerful faith that manifests as great things. So how I gave Tracy her faith back was that everybody was looking at me like I was crazy for going to trial. And I said, God is not going to punish me like this. I'm not staying away from my children that long. Not when I was protecting myself and them, and I did the right thing by saying, no, I don't want to sell guns out of my house. I already been in 2 shootouts. I was in one at 15, pregnant with my daughter. I was in one again at 18. And again, just not part of the gang, just walking on the street. And I had experienced a lot of trauma by that time, violence in the home, in the community, boyfriends, drugs. My older sister was hooked on drugs. So I also had this air of, because I grew up with my grandparents on Candlewood Lane, upper middle class, I had this air of privilege. So I was a privileged Negro, okay? I was a Negro who didn't know that her black skin would make people treat her different, because I've never had it addressed to me in my family, because we're all mixed up. White, black, Puerto Rican, Polish, Italian, you name it, we got it, right? And so in the criminal justice system, I was familiar, I was okay with cops, right? I was okay because the chief came over to the house at the cookouts, the detectives came over. I went to school with the lead detective, he also took my case. And all this stuff that I've been around, I never knew how jacked up the criminal justice system was until I got in it, until I became that nigger bitch, who's causing so much harm, having babies at a young age, on welfare, taken away from our system. When I became your stereotypical ghetto black chick who was in a violent crime, it didn't matter no more. And nobody even checked that 9 months before this incident happened, my son's father kicked out my front door and tried to kill me and my son out of rage and jealousy. And I stabbed him 13 times to put him in a coma. So when we talk about who Tracy and I are, we are women who are very strong, who have been through a lot of trauma, a lot of sexual abuse, a lot of physical, emotional, mental abuse, who ended up in situations that caused us to be in prison before the age of 25. And then we are women who, while incarcerated, I got raped. She was in SAG for 7 years. Came home, reconnected 20 years later, and was like, yo, you're the only person I could talk to. I've been home 20 years. I've never felt normal. 45-minute conversation in the car, being a part of a program I started 10 years prior to that date, was like, yo, we're going to start something. We need our own AA meeting. So we said, Once Incarcerated Anonymous. So I'm bringing y'all all up to date. Did that help with you?
Yeah, and that answered the again the paving my pain into power, right? I don't think anyone can misconstrue the stories that both of you just told as anything but that. So thank you guys for sharing that. And to kind of build on that, right? So you mentioned founding several things. Can you speak to what you founded 10 years prior to Tracy getting out? And then, can you speak to that a little bit?
Okay, so I've been home 22 years, September 19th this year. And what I've been able to accomplish in my existence home and my reentry success while being homeless. I'm currently displaced. I'm homeless. This is my 5th time being chronically homeless. So that now I'm a chronic homeless person. This is my 5th time being homeless, not because of my own doing, but because of my 28-year-old felony conviction. Just so we understand. Okay? In 2010, I did the campaign for Ban the Box, removing the question, have you ever been convicted of a felon, from state and local job applications and anyone who contracts with the state. So some private companies had to remove the question. I ran that campaign from the ground up, and we had to override former Governor Rell's veto. She promised a black mother, whose children's father, who was incarcerated, was her husband, that she would sign the bill if we get it to her desk. We did. She vetoed it, peer pressure. Mm-hmm. Then what we did was I started a nonprofit lobbying company, Civic Trust Public Lobbying Company. It is the first and only black, formerly incarcerated, female-owned nonprofit lobbying company that offers free lobbying services to our members, which means if you are a member of Civic Trust, you do not have to disclose that to federal government if you're a nonprofit and you're working on advocacy at the Capitol under Civic Trust, because I gave you free lobbying services. I just trained you on how to do civic engagement and advocacy as a resident. But your organization would be getting free lobbying services because your organization paid for the membership, and it's tax deductible as a membership tax break. I always say that because people are like, what is that? And it's really a crafty way to let nonprofits and private organizations hire a lobbyist without having to say they're hired a lobbyist. Very crafty. So yes, the IRS checked that out with me 3 times to make sure I didn't want to be a 501c3. And I was like, no, C4 on purpose. So I started that, and Connecticut Ethics Committee changed the law to include grassroots lobbying, which is what I do, and make you register. So that was one thing I started. I started Harvey Consulting. I was part of the coalition to bring about the, which is what Tracy and I worked together, reconnected on, which was the Phoenix Association, which is formerly incarcerated professionals going inside DOC to talk about what's going on. And we started that with Vivian and Fred Hodges and Fred Jackson and all my brothers, Daeed McKnight from Reentry, Family Reentry. There was Mark, he was there. So we had like a collective of men and women, Robin, who started it off, and I would train the leaders and stuff like that. And we started going around, then they got a grant, and it's been going ever since. But when we started, it was just all volunteer, and it was a bunch of us who kind of got tired of people thinking we're nothing, and tired of that whole safety and security, undue familiarity crap. We were like, no, it was because a staff walked that line, right, Trey? Because the staff said, you know what, I'm going to treat you like a human being, that I became successful when I came home. I became successful while I was in jail. Not that undue familiarity. That undue familiarity caused me more trauma, which took me longer to recoup from after coming home.
We just hit the at the exact same time.
I'm digesting.
So, there was a lot in that, and I want to kind of pick apart a few of the things that we touched on. But something just to note, because I want to go in and out a little bit. So, Tracy, you mentioned being formerly incarcerated for
3 years.
23 years.
Out of 30.
Mm-hmm.
So, coming out, and so many of our listeners, were formerly incarcerated. Our co-host, formerly incarcerated. So this is a topic that is near and dear to all of our hearts here, and something that I think people tune in for the specifics of how do we overcome some of these obstacles, and like you guys say, how do we pave our pain into power? Right. So coming out, what were some of the biggest obstacles of coming out of incarceration that you guys had to deal with? And Tracy, we'll start with you.
So for me, I always like to say I was like Fred Flintstone's coming to the Jetsons. There was no internet when I went to jail. When I went to jail, there was actually a beeper used in our crime. Like we used a beeper to summon somebody. That's how old, it was.
I was there for beepers.
Yeah, right.
He wasn't, but I was there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So yeah,
143.
and 911 on your beeper if it was an emergency. But yeah, so we used beepers, and so for me, coming home and my mom handing me an iPhone was like, what the heck is this?
What year you came home? I'm sorry.
I came home in 2015.
Okay.
So I've been home almost 6 years, and well, first of all, I was disenfranchised for 23 years, right? So I went in as a 19-year-old kid. So I never really had jobs. I can't use my social security number is like, I had, when I first came home and stuff, got on food stamps and stuff. And you know how you can use your card to get like the Obama phone or whatever?
Yeah.
I just wanted to try. I had my phone, like I said, but I just wanted to see if I can, And so I went up to them, and they're like, "I'm sorry, you have to contact the IRS or somebody because your social security number doesn't come up, and it's because it's never been used." And so it's like, even though I ended up getting jobs when I came home and I paid taxes, my social security number still doesn't come up because I don't have any credit, or I don't have any credit history. And so that's like a big thing. I get car sick still. I have, like I said, I served 7 years in solitary confinement, which makes it even worse because I have severe noise trauma. I have post-traumatic stress. I have anxiety over everything. So coming home to me was like a whole culture shock. And it was like, at first, even now I still get car sick. We just went somewhere the other day. We went to an event the other day, and I got car sick the whole way back because I'm not used to being in a vehicle, right? I'm used to being at this 4-building compound, and that's it. That's my existence, And so it wasn't hard for me to get a job, but only because I had connections. I had somebody that was already connected, but I knew when I came home, I had already decided, because I was on a tier with a bunch of people that were in jail for murder and they weren't going home. So they were all like, "Tracy, what are you going to say when you go home? Like, what do you do? Like, you have murder charges. If somebody asks you if you're formerly incarcerated, what do you do?" And I never could figure out what I was going to do until I saw in a magazine they had a lady, and she had a shirt on and it said, "I am an ex-con," and she was walking down the streets of New York. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to tell everybody, because I don't want them to be able to pull the rug out from underneath me. And, I become friends with somebody, and then they're like, "Oh, no, oh, you were in jail for murder? Oh my God, I can't, that will break my heart, Yeah. So I'd rather get the rejection right up front. If you don't like me, that's right. So I was like, I'm going to tell everyone. And it was good that I did, because when I first came home, I actually ended up, and this is just real quick. I started dating somebody that was working. I was in the halfway house, and I started dating a guy that was working with me. Basically, like, he was close, and I hadn't seen a guy in a long time. That was like a mistake, but
hello.
Yeah, right.
It works both ways, fellas.
And because of my
hello.
Yeah, right. Because of my Arrested Development too, I think I thought I was younger than I was. So I'm 42. I was 42 when I came out, and this guy was 28. He was just my age.
Cool girl.
Yeah, right. And so it was a total mistake. But the reason it was a mistake, and what turned out to be good, is that he had, all right, so when I was in jail, I always, because I didn't think I would be able to have a child, that's another thing I lost. I missed the childbearing age for my own body. And I think I did. Don't surprise me now. Anyways, I always prayed on having a child. So this guy had a child. So I thought, like, this is the one I prayed for, I'm going to mother his child. And his actual baby's mother ended up being a maniac and stalked me, called my job, was asking to speak to the murderer, was calling and saying that she wouldn't come to that. She was going to pretending to be a customer. And at first she didn't say it was her. We didn't know it was her I knew, but they couldn't say it was her for a long time. And the cool thing about it was I had told everybody at my job already. They knew that I was in jail for murder or whatever, and they were cool with me. So when she was calling, and even my manager would answer the phone, and she would be like, hello, let me talk to the murderer. And she'd say, which one? We've got lots of murderers working here. And so it was like a support system that otherwise could have broke me, because if I didn't tell them, she was threatening to bring the news there and tell them that they had murderers working for them. It ended up to the point where she threatened to shoot up the entire restaurant. She was pretending to be the victim in my case family at this time. I mean, this lady was like really going at it for like 2 months. And she was pretending to be my victim's sister, and she did not know anything about my crime. There was no gun involved in my crime. And she was like, I'm going to come in the restaurant and shoot you like you shot my sister. I'm like, damn, that was your sister, and you don't even know how. So we ended up having to call the cops because there were so many people in the restaurant that the owner was like, we have to, this is my restaurant. I can't just let this continue. So when the cops came, they wanted to arrest her, and they wanted to arrest her on several counts, which she would have went away for a long time, because they counted the amount of people that were in the restaurant when she made the threat. They counted the workers. They counted everybody. And so they were going to arrest her like severely. And of course, I just got out of jail for doing 23 years for being dumb. So I was like, no, don't do that to her. She has a child. Just like tell her under no uncertain circumstances, like, this girl just got out of jail for this. She just served this amount of time. She doesn't want you to go to jail. Just leave her alone. She'll break up with the dude. And I broke up with the dude. I was like, you got to deal with her for the next 18 years, not me. And so to me, that was like my biggest experience, besides not knowing how to take a bus, not knowing how to use GPS, not knowing how to, drive. I mean, there's a lot. I mean,
banking. And
I did end up finding that family. I'll just quickly say I found the family that I prayed for, and sometimes they call me warden there. So because I'm so regimented from being incarcerated for so long, like literally sometimes when it's bedtime, I'll be like, you guys got 5 on the door till lock. And they'll look at me like, Mom, but yeah, I mean, to me, coming home is like, it's a total like culture shock. It's a sensory overload. It's not what I expected it to be. I'll just say that. And then, because I expected freedom to be freedom, and I didn't know about collateral damages. I thought once you were finished with your sentence, there's no double jeopardy in our court systems. You cannot be tried twice for the same crime. So how can society try us twice for the same crime? And I never knew. I mean, I understood to an extent what it was like to be a minority, because when you're in prison, you get treated like second class by the guards themselves. But then you come home, and now I'm also in that understanding, like in such a good way, like I actually see, like, not that it was good that I experienced it, but I see firsthand, and I can tell people about it. Like, this is real serious discrimination, and you might not think this affects you, but this affects everybody. It's not just a black and brown thing. This is everybody. This is, and so for me,
and let's just say she was Miss what? Junior teen Hartford.
And in 1989, when I was 15 years old, before all this started, I was Miss Junior Teen Hartford, and I was gonna do something with my life. I just did, I just got really deterred, and to me, like, learning about all this stuff, I feel like I didn't go to jail to get sentenced. I didn't go to jail to be punished. I went to jail to be a witness. And then when I came home, God gave me a platform. I had already heard about Larice. When I was in jail, I heard from the librarian there, about the things that she was doing and stuff. And after getting out of solitary, I became a mentor. And then I got involved in a lot of art programs and stuff because I discovered I'm an artist, which I didn't know. She's very good. And the first project that we did got put in the Brooklyn Museum alongside of the Judy Chicago dinner party because we emulated her dinner party. And then it went from the American Visionary Art Museum. I went to the American Visionary Art Museum, and then it went to Randolph College to Mayer Museum. And, it got the art that I was doing, I started getting exposure, right? So I started doing, Kathy Malloy and Dan Malloy started coming into the prison when he was the governor, and I started networking. So I started learning about networking, and that's how, eventually when I got out, I already had a foot out the door as far as having a platform. And I was already inspired because this lady that got me my faith back, I was able to. So it's like a whole, like, you can really see everything like come full circle.
So go ahead, Kev.
I want to commend you. I want to go back to that restaurant thing because you could have had resent. You could have had all type of negative things. You could have sent her to jail forever. But based off your experience, based off your trauma, you don't wish that on your worst enemy, literally.
Yeah.
So I want to salute you for that because, like, those type of decisions could determine your karma.
Yep.
On which way your life could project. And you did a very solid thing, which is now why you're sitting here and with so many good things happening. So I just wanted to commend you on that. Because I don't know, like, a lot of people would have been like, send her to jail then.
Well, she even came to me at the restaurant and was trying to to fight me. And, like, I didn't go outside because I had an ankle bracelet on at the time. But the reason I was soft on her is because I think about this, and I think about nobody considers people's trauma. And how do I know if those two were not still going out and he was just telling me they were broken up? Why was she acting so cuckoo? Right. And I didn't consider her. I had to consider, as mad as I was and embarrassed as I was, because that was embarrassing.
Oh, yeah.
But I kept thinking to myself, this girl has really serious trauma. She has a kid. The court system doesn't think enough about taking kids away from parents now. So I'm going to be here and I'm going to take this mother away from this child because maybe she's temporarily crazy because she's jealous. Like, I'm not, and then she's thinking, people's stigmas and stereotypes. She's thinking that this man is with my baby's father is with a murderer. She doesn't see me as who I am. Right. She sees me as that stereotype and that stigma, So it was hard to do that, to be honest, because, you want to be like, whatever, and then she go to jail, and then all my friends will get her. But I was like,
Send the kite back.
Yeah, like, this is the one that did that. But I took a different road, and I'm glad.
Nah, that's what's up, though. Salute.
So 2 words that really came to mind through what you were saying. One was transparency, where you kind of learned, hey, if I put it out there and just am honest, then I end up putting the ball in other people's courts. So if someone doesn't like me, for me, I don't have to learn it, a month, 2 months into the relationship. I can learn it right away. And then the second thing, which was just touched on there, is like real empathy, right? Being able to understand that just because I've had a certain experience or you've had a certain experience doesn't mean that other people have those experiences, and vice versa. And being able to use your experience to make another person's life better that you could have made substantially worse. So one thing I want to touch on, and then I kind of we'll come back to where we were a few minutes ago, is you mentioned, hey, I didn't know that I was good at art. And now it sounds like that's something that you're very passionate about and do regularly, and it sounds like it's a somewhat big part of your life. Is that fair to say? So,
in honesty, it was a huge part of my life while I was incarcerated, and I've spoken at colleges and universities about the projects that I have been a part of, and I was in a couple art shows since I've come home, but that's kind of fallen on the back burner. kind of really invested in our organization that we started, Once Incarcerated, Once Inc. And I would love to be able to have time to do my art again. And hopefully once our organization is properly funded and we can hire people, I won't have to do so much and I can focus on my art. But my art was a big part of my existence because while I was in solitary confinement, I couldn't have anything, but I could have books. And I could have regular writing paper. And so I had an attorney that was like one of my best friends, and he sent me origami books. And I don't know if you guys ever saw like a piece of origami, like a little folded thing, like they have ducks and swans and stuff. Well, this one had like furniture. It had like a little piano in it. So I made the little piano on my counter, and then I was like, oh, this is nice. And so I was like, I'm going to make a couch. And I was like, I had to use the same folds and go through the book and get different folds. But then I made a couch. So then eventually, by the time I left solitary confinement, believe this or not, I had a whole counter full of furniture. So when I got out and I got in the art class, I showed him this, I bring him this bag of paper furniture, like I colored it all in and stuff, and I brung it to him, and I'm like, I need to put this in a house. So he gave me a big maxi pad box, and like I just like started really, and we made a house out of the maxi pad box, and we ended up selling it in an art show. And like, so I started doing these things and realizing that I had talent. And I didn't know that because I thought, like Reese said, we have all that negative messages in our whole life. And I thought, like, I'm this piece of shit. I can't do it. I knew I could write. I knew I was a good writer. But I did not know that I could even draw. I did not know that any of that because,
Yeah, and what you just mentioned is so incredibly powerful because I know so many individuals, right, that say, I don't have anything that I'm good at. And it's like, well, what have you tried? Oh, well, and then they'll give you the rundown of how they don't have time to try it or they don't have this or they didn't. And the bottom line is if you don't try things, you never know what you're good at or you never know what lights that fire under you, right?
Yeah.
So I hope that that's a message that came across and what you just said. It's like it's really important, and for you was the art. Did that start out of almost necessity, meaning like, hey, I just didn't have anything else to do while I was in solitary confinement, or was it just kind of like this is what else am I going to do?
No, it was necessity, and it was one thing about women in prison is that we're always making stuff for each other, even when we can't draw. We're tracing and coloring and just really. Trying to figure out ways to make people get through the day. And so I always would trace on handkerchiefs and stuff, but I didn't know that I could freehand anything. I didn't know because I never really had a chance to nourish any of that. And like in solitary confinement, when you get books and stuff, they're like, oh, you can read in solitary confinement. They're like mystery books because you can read and there's like 30 pages missing in between, or you get to the end and there's no, so that was like, I had to occupy myself. So I was either writing poetry or doing art. And that was towards the end because before that I was busy trying to hurt myself all the time. Yeah.
So to segue into what has taken time away from art, your guys' organization.
Yeah. So it is my fault we do not have our digital yearly report done because we're so busy getting people out of jail, preventing people from going to jail, and training new leaders, refreshing some of the old leaders in Arizona, Florida, Connecticut. So we do a lot of stuff. And Once Incarcerated, Once Inc., a.k.a. Once In, is a nonprofit determined to change the narrative of being formerly incarcerated to ensure zero entry for all children, no matter what the crime, because no child is legally, mentally, or medically capable of making right and wrong decisions until they're over the age of 25. And we keep making these horrendous laws to incarcerate our youth instead of saying, hey, why did Tracy or I had to wait until we were in prison to find out we were artists, that we were creative writers, that we were drawers, that we could take pictures a certain way that tells a message or whatever? Why did I have to go to jail to do a play to find out I'm a great actress? All those things should have been in school available for free.
Right.
I'm not going to say they're no longer available. I'm going to say they need to be still free. Because when I was growing up, they were there and then they took them out of the schools. We need to put them back. You keep wondering why the kids is going crazy. They don't have any other alternative to express themselves besides through violence. So if I'm growing up in violence and all I see is violence, then all I'm going to mimic is violence. But if you bring me to, I'm in school and it's mandatory, I have to do art class, and I learned about charcoal, pencil, shading, origami, painting, and I get to, or writing, creative writing class where I get to express myself, and the teacher is not questioning or correcting my English or my dialect, but hearing my soul, my pain, my passion. That's what we need. We don't need more prisons. We don't need more draconian laws. We need more arts in free programming in our schools. We need more civic engagement and judicial advocacy in our schools. And when you do that, when you hear when a child knows, you hear them, it doesn't matter what their behaviors are. When they know they have a voice and you're going to give them an option to share that with someone who's going to listen and do something about it, you change that child's trajectory.
Agreed.
A prison sentence. CSROs are police officers in our schools. They're added plus with the security, and these are mostly in predominantly urban schools. So, are we really caring for our minority and poor children to be in the schools? Are we really preparing them for college? I mean, in New Britain alone, these kids don't even have real books in 2021. Sounds like we living in 1932, 1940, 1950, not 2021, for a school with a Republican mayor who is very young herself, is not supplying the budget or releasing $500,000 to the school system so that they can purchase books. We got other cities who's got free computers to give out to kids.
Tablets and all that.
And tablets, yeah. So New Britain is not that big. If New Haven can do it, why New Britain can't? If Waterbury can do it, why New Britain can't? You know, so to me, it's just a matter with the new Republican rah-rah about wanting to get these kids, you know, increase the age to treat them like adults for robbing into vehicles and stealing stuff. Instead of wanting to create a law to flourish the prison system again, because we done closed down 7. Most of them are in Senator Kisso's district, so he's the one that wants to head it up because, you know, census tells you who gets the most money in the state with cities, right? So all those people who are in jail who are now home getting those services, their communities are getting that budget money for them being counted, and they're getting more social service monies and stuff. And Senator Kisso's district is getting less. So yes, of course he wants those bad kids who are stealing those cars in Glastonbury and Enfield and West Hartford, whatever the hell they at, stealing cars. Yeah, we want more laws on them. We want to put them down. And I can't believe the Commissioner on Safety and Security said we need 100 to 200 of our youth to just slow down by putting them in prison. That is the answer to the future for black and brown kids? Guess what? Wake up, America. Majority of those motherfucking kids is white boys. Going to Hartford, getting hooked on fake Percocets and fake opioids being sold at these different stores, these bodegas and gas stations. So instead of saying we need to punish them, we need to start asking our question, what is wrong with our youth? What is going on? What are we not providing? We're not providing a place for them to be. We're not providing after school activities for poor people to attend to. Everything is $25 for this application, $150 for that. Mommy and daddy can barely make $15 to pay the light bill in this community, because guarantee you there's 5 people in that household that got a felony conviction, including the kid himself or herself. So what we're talking about when we talk about once incarcerated, we're talking about addressing those over 450,000 collateral consequences for having a criminal record, for being incarcerated. She's a generational one. I'm not. Our stories, although different and similar, is about privilege. Her white privilege and my middle class privilege, right? We had different experiences. We are not in the unique way of leaving incarceration. I went home to a family, but because my grandmother is an old school black woman who grew up during Depression. I had to have a job in a week. My parole officer said 2 weeks. I bet you I had a job in a week. My first paycheck, I gave it to my grandmother. I had to pay rent. I don't know when Tracy had to start paying rent when she came home, but I had to get
Immediately.
my life together right away. That's because Mama Bernardi don't be playing, cause she know. But but what I'm saying is, like, when you grow, a lot of people don't have a place to go, and all this subsidized housing. I'm homeless. I'm displaced. I sleep in my car. And I'm still waiting for Bristol Housing Authority to release my Section 8 certificate. I gave them everything you could possibly ask anybody for a housing application. My number came up, and people in those positions, they get upset when you keep calling them. And it's like, bitch, I'm living in my motherfucking car while you home in your house, right, in your apartment with your heat. It's cold outside. Luckily tonight I get to stay at Tracy's house. But tomorrow, where am I staying? Of course, I'll probably stay at her house, But what I'm saying is, I've been sleeping in my car. It's getting winter time. I gave you everything you needed. Only thing you need to do is call me. When somebody says they're homeless and sleeping in their car, you should be calling them the very next day like, hey, I got your paperwork, coming to the office. Let's get you together. That is not how we respond to people with criminal records. How we respond to people with criminal records and how we respond to people that are formerly incarcerated, especially people like us with violent crimes, is, oh my God, you're a disgrace to society. You shouldn't be around our kids. You shouldn't be around our dogs, our cats. You shouldn't have any rights whatsoever. That's how we treat people with criminal records. Is that fair? Is that humane?
No, and it's so much of all of these issues that you just spoke of stem from ignorance, right? Ignorance and lack of empathy and understanding. And I like to look at things where I try to see things from every angle. And something, I think it must have been 2000, maybe 2010. It was there. There's always been so much gun violence in Chicago, right? Chicago's notorious for that. And I remember at the time, President Obama was in office, and some middle-aged white man went on the news and talked about, that was making a statement essentially around the line of the idea that the kids should be able to have access to laptops. And someone said that it was easier for a kid in Chicago to get access to a gun than it was a laptop. And this white man was furious and saying that's not true, that can't be the case. And as anyone who grew up in that area would know, it quite literally was easier to get access to a gun than a laptop. And what that told me, this individual who had no experience and never lived in this very comfortable, safe environment, for him, it was unquestionably easier to get a laptop than a gun. He wouldn't even know where to start to get a gun. But that was his experience, and he blew that out to the whole world. Right? He said, because this is my experience, this must be every single person's experience. And unfortunately, that's not how the world works. And we're grateful to be able to have individuals like yourselves who are trying to educate and tell people, hey, because that's your experience, that doesn't mean that that's everyone's experience. And that is such I find a very challenging thing to get across, that idea of how do you stop ignorance, right? You made the point that no one should be able to be tried as an adult essentially until 25, and the reasoning for that, to back that up, is brain development, right?
Yes.
When you look at the top part of our brain, which is responsible for abstract thinking, right? It's responsible for decision making, and and it's responsible for what it's really responsible for is, hey, if I can say what I do today is going to affect me week, month, year, 5 years, 10 years from now, right? When I'm 16 years old, I don't have use of that part of my brain very well. And especially if I am already susceptible to being impulsive, if I'm in environments where there's a lot of substance use around or a lot of witnessing trauma, that part of my brain is already developing in a very abnormal way, right? A non-normative way. And it's a really hard, I wish individuals really understood this and took this into consideration, right? If I was punished for the things that I did when I was an adolescent, right? I mean, I didn't wind up in this chair because I was this perfect person, right?
That part.
And I got super lucky to come out of it just like this, right? So
it's no money in opening up community centers, doing therapy
right
for
thing.
kids, doing the right thing. Ain't no money in that. The money in the prison system. You know what I mean? It's a cash cow. And that's the issue with the country. It ain't gonna change until the money's not there.
Well, we know that firsthand. That's why Once Incarcerated exists. Like, people are like, oh, you guys are ghetto. You're always doing fundraisers. But here's the thing. It's her and it's I. And yes, we're great creative writers, but we're not grant writers. And a lot of people want to volunteer and say, oh, well, I done wrote like 15 different grants, different ways. But yeah, I don't think I'm writing them in a way that will solicit a grant writer. So if you're a funder and you like what we do, so in case you want to know, since 2019, we have created a training manual of civic and justice advocacy for youth for OIC in New Britain and Paradigm in New Britain with their youth. So we have that manual. We have created a organizing civic and judicial advocacy training manual for the Detini House in Arizona, and we're right now I'm contracting with them to help them do their campaign to get rid of the gang enhancement law that they have, which is unconstitutional, and their prosecutory attorney's office is caught up in this whole thing of where, depending on where you live, they automatically give you that charge to enhance your sentence 25 to 50 years. So we're talking about 14-year-olds who get caught with a joint, but if they can get caught in like a suburban area, but if their home address is where known gang members live, then they will add that gang enhancement charge to you, even if you weren't associated with any gangs, just because of your address.
Your neighborhood.
Your neighborhood makes you have that gang enhancement if you get arrested for anything. Automatically. This is what the prosecutor was doing. So the FBI is investigating. So I'm helping them do leadership training campaign around that, and we're called the Arizona Racial Ethnic Impact Statement Alliance, because they're saying they're ending systemic racism through racial ethnic impact statements by showing that the law itself is racially discriminatory in its practice, and any law that says that is unconstitutional and therefore should be revoked. And the gang enhancement law has already been revoked in Connecticut.
It has.
No, the government says that it's unconstitutional, but Arizona State Prosecutory Office, State's Attorney's Office, what you call it, they are refusing to go back and reverse all those gang enhancement charges. So the FBI is investigating them now. What we're saying, we want to revoke that law, remove anybody who has been hit with that law since its existence, get to come home. It's time served. And any other law that they want to put up or is on the books now, we want racial ethnic impact statements to show the discriminatory in practice, and any law like that needs to be removed or revised so that it's equitable.
So anyone listening that ever thought for any reason that there's no such thing as systematic racism,
yes,
you just gave a great example of that.
Yes, exactly.
Oh my Lord, that's crazy. I didn't know about that. That's
crazy. In
crazy.
Connecticut, I did it in 2009 or 10. We did the racial ethnic impact statement into Connecticut's General Assembly. No, it was 2011, and then that same year we did one for the drug-free school zone law in Connecticut, and it still took them forever. So you're talking 2010. 2011 to, no, it was 2009. Good Lord. So from 2009 to 2015 before they reformed it, even though they knew it was racially discriminatory in practice, it still took Connecticut, Second Chance State, almost 10 more years to get rid of it. Once Incarcerated exists because we are changing the narrative. We are changing the game, right? I'm a black mother who, there was a senator in California who made a joke when I told him my story. He said, so I'm literally talking to a woman who brought a knife to a gunfight and won. And I was like, wow, I didn't even think about it like that. So it's like, to the mom of, the people who lost Tammy, that's not funny. But that kind of humor formerly incarcerated people understand, especially those of us who have victims who have passed on. We're not making light of the situation. We're learning how to thrive in spite of what we've done and not keep burdening ourselves, because you want healthy thinking people out here once they leave prison. You don't want monsters like the projected image in the newspaper and in our own subliminal minds. So Once Incarcerated exists to make sure there's zero entry for children, change the narrative, and to let people know we are professionals. I have 6 college degrees. I've done more with my life in the last 20 years being home than most people did in the last 65 years just casting a vote. Let's be real. But you still want to judge me for what I did at 21, and mine was self-defense. If we had a stand your ground law, I would have never lost my kids and I would have never went to jail. So let's think about, are we really punishing criminals, or are we punishing people with severe trauma, developmental issues, mental health issues? Like, I have chronic PTSD and combat PTSD. If you live in an urban community in the 1990s, chances are you have combat PTSD, especially if you've been in shootouts. I've been in shootouts where one of my friends from high school got shot in the butt and I had to grab him and run with him. At 15, I passed 1988 Children's Act congressional legislation as a teen mom because I wanted the right to, go to the doctor and the doctor treat me like I'm a parent, not that I'm a kid. I'm the parent of that child. That was my daughter. So I'm saying I've always used my pain. I am not a statistic. But if you want to add me to a statistic, make sure you add me to the anomaly side, because I'm always going to come out on top. Because I am powerful, because I exist in spite of my pain.
Yeah.
That's why Once Incarcerated exists. So we need your donations on our website, onceincarcerated.com. I'm at .org, onceincarcerated.org. On our Facebook page, we need you guys to not just donate money, but we need you to donate your time and help us. Like, if you're a grant writer, don't say, I'll help you write a grant. No, make 2 hours time, schedule it, and write that grant with me. Right. Don't tell me, I'll help you, and then don't do nothing. We need people to donate gas cards. We have people who call who want to go somewhere, but they don't have the gas money with COVID. And mind you, during COVID-19, when no other organization got people out, Tracy and I got people out. In the state of Ohio, we got a person out and prevented a person from going to jail. And we got 11 people out in Connecticut, more women than males, but we got 2 men out and the rest were women. And we're still getting people out because the DOC commissioner respects us. A lot of nonprofit reentry centers respects us. The formerly incarcerated community and their families respect us and trust us. And we're just asking the funders, put your money where you say you support. Put it right here, Once Incarcerated, because we are going to hire formerly incarcerated people, and that will a living wage, so that they can have housing, buy a house, be a homeowner, and I'm always working on something, Tracy always says. So I am working on a housing project, and I want someone to help us, and it's called Once Incarcerated Anonymous Properties. And it's properties for formerly incarcerated people. I'm going to put it out there, especially those of us with mental health. And I say, if you're formerly incarcerated and you came home, you got a mental health issue, just tell your doctor.
100%.
And we need our own Section 8 because we are discriminated people for housing. We do. Yeah. Because even in current housing situation, which is why I'm homeless, my sister in Ohio was going to lose her housing because the new manager didn't want to put me on because of my crime from 20. I'm 49, y'all. I was 21, 28 years ago. And I keep saying that because I want you to understand how long you going to keep punishing me for saving my life and my kid's life. How long you going to keep telling me I'm a bad mom for doing that? I'm not going to feel guilty anymore. I'm going to tell you should be ashamed to feel guilty for how you're treating me. after all I did for you and your family, because I'm the one that's up there fighting to make sure you got money for your schools. I don't see you up there, public school system. I'm the one up there fighting to make sure your kids don't get trapped in a system that'll send them to jail so long that when they come out, they can't even bear children. It's a new form of genocide and gerrymandering. Please, people, when you support us, you support in a community. It's not just an organization. We're family.
So where can people go to support and make donations?
So you can go to onceincarcerated.org. We have our website, and on our website, you can make donations through there. Or we will also include with this podcast our PayPal and our Cash App. And our donations we are a 501c3, so our donations are all tax deductible. And like Larry said, the things that we're doing, we have helped people with simple things like time computation, where the Department of Correction, the people that they were dealing with could not get their time straight because there's the old law and there's the new law. And most of the people that were working in DOC were before the new law, so they don't know about the old law. So what people would do is they'll contact me and say, "Hey Tracy, listen, this is my timesheet. I know I'm supposed to have days or whatever. Can you do something about it?" And I'll just give a heads up to the commissioner. I'll go straight to the top and I'll give a heads up, and he'll give a heads up, and the next thing you know, their timesheet is fixed and they're home.
That's huge.
Yeah,
That's huge.
And like the same thing,
modification, and
the same thing with compassionate.
Release.
We have, the sad thing is we have somebody in 60 West right now, and we got this person a compassionate release through the same means, just writing and saying, "Hey, this girl's dying. I know what it felt like to be there. I can't imagine if I was this," and using my own experience in these letters, and boom, a package got put in. She got compassionate release. Then she got parole through using the same letters. Problem is, she's still stuck in 60 West because she can't get housing because of her record. And she's
elderly and disabled.
She's elderly in a wheelchair. See, that's one of the things that Larissa and I talk about a lot, is that you're not allowed to discriminate against people based on because of mental health, and you're not allowed to discriminate. Housing, you can go to like CHRO if somebody discriminates against you based on mental health, or if somebody discriminates against you based on anything. But formerly incarcerated people are under no umbrella of discrimination, and that takes precedence. If we have a mental health issue for which we should not be discriminated against, it doesn't matter. Once we have that stamp of a criminal record on top of it, our mental health record is ignored. It doesn't matter. And the same thing with the fact that she's an elderly woman in a wheelchair, and she's still, it's been like 8 months, and we've tried everywhere. She even has the money follows the people. Like, she has security. She has everything she needs. She's on Social Security, so she has a steady income. There's no reason but that, she was incarcerated. And so the same thing. Recently, we helped somebody. This is a cool feat that I think I'd like to tell you guys about.
Please.
Recently, so I have a friend that was incarcerated, and she recently became kind of client, but we don't call them clients; they're participants. But I like to say I'm not only the executive director, but I'm also a client, like that hair club for men.
I'm also the client.
So she was incarcerated with me, and she had a 50-year sentence, and she was recently going up for parole, but she was an interstate compact. And the problem is, she's also I'm not going to say what tribe she's in, but she's a Native American, and her tribe, she was banished from her tribe because of her crime. So now, fast forward, she asks me to write her co-defendant because she's not allowed to write her co-defendant. So I write him. He writes me back, says, "Look, I can't communicate with you guys because I just made parole." I'm like, "Listen, you are eligible for parole. If dude is eligible for parole, so are you." So we contacted her prison, her counselors and stuff that were left behind and where she came from. And they said, "Yes, you are eligible for parole. The only problem is, you need to, if you go, you have to go to a halfway house in Rhode Island where you came from." Did I say New Jersey before? I don't know.
Rhode Island.
Okay. You have to go to a halfway house in Rhode Island where you came from, because you can't go to anywhere to your family's house in Connecticut because if you go to the reservation, you're banished from the tribe. You'll get arrested immediately. So
Damn.
first we had to tackle that. So I wrote her tribe. I wrote the tribal elders, and I was like, listen, I hope that this isn't going against your customs or whatever, but this is who I am. My name is Tracy. I was incarcerated for 23 years. I have come home. I told them I spoke at the Women March. I'm an ACLU Smart Justice cohort leader. I just listed like all the things that I've done since I've been home. And I said, I was in jail for murder. And look at me. I'm a totally different person. I'm an asset to society. And then I talked about how I knew the person. And I talked about how, that person was always looking for herself, trying to find herself, and just told them, like what she was like during incarceration, really struggling to find herself and get better. And when they read the letter, they had a ceremony for her to decide whether she was going to be banished or unbanished, continue to be banished or be unbanished. And they said 4 of the tribal elders actually started crying through my letter, and they immediately reinstated her back into the tribe. And we also...
You forgot the most important thing. The letter of the job.
I know. Okay, we're getting there. And so that was for parole, though. The letter for the job was for parole. Larice wrote a letter for her, offering her to, as we said, we do once an anonymous. It's like AA and NA for formerly incarcerated people, and we do it on Zoom. So we offered her a non-paid position as a group facilitator to facilitate our groups. So she'll train how to do our groups, and then eventually she'll do that. But that gave them, this girl's going to be rooted in the community. She's going to be doing things, and that helped her get parole. So, and I wrote the same kind of letter that I wrote to parole too. So Larice wrote that letter, and I wrote this letter, and she got parole. And needless to say, she should not have been home for another 12 years.
But she's home.
But she's home with her family now. She's back on the reservation. And that's what we do. We call it participatory defense. I don't know who to look at. So we call it participatory defense, and we help with modifications. We're currently helping with about 4 modifications, and it's cool because the way we help is we write these very eye-opening letters to these people that are in positions of power that are going to make that decision. And we also, for somebody recently, a girl who was incarcerated since she was 14 years old, who recently got out, her lawyers did like all the big work, but we solicited videos, we solicited videos. We wrote letters. We edited people's letters. So it's hard to get people to write reference letters when people are not comfortable with a computer or whatever. So I'm like, just text it to me in a big blob, voice text it to me. I'll put it in a letter form and check it out and see if you approve, and then send it in. So we've done stuff like this. We have done. We do a lot of peer support. Before we started with Once Incarcerated, I was working at Community Health Resources, and so I was a warm line specialist. I'm also a recovery support specialist, certified. But so I was a warm line specialist, and so I got to, and I was also a rehab coordinator. I had 2 jobs there. But being in those capacities helped me to learn how to deal with people on the outside, because up until before I was only dealing with people on the inside, like people's trauma inside. And so then so Once Incarcerated, eventually I would like Once Incarcerated to have a warm line for formerly incarcerated people, answered by formerly incarcerated people. Can you imagine you're like, you can't tell anyone how you feel, but because they wouldn't understand, but you could call this person and they'll be like, I was in jail too. And okay, this is how I got through this. And all right, this is the pit I was in. And this is how I got out. Because I don't want nobody telling me how to get out of a pit if they don't know how to get out of it. Well, the book says you get out no, I want to get out now.
I ain't trying to hear that.
Yeah.
No, facts.
But Once Incarcerated has done a lot of stuff. And we do it on the slide. We do it unpaid. We work like 7 days a week. And we're constantly in meetings. We're constantly figuring out how can we do this. We're working on a bill right now, actually, that I should talk about a little bit real quick. We're working on a bill that is going to address the over-incarceration for people under the ages of 25 who were incarcerated for a crime that ended in a death. we believe, because of what we talked about earlier, brain development, and as well as brain trauma and arrested development, we believe that a lot of people have been over sentenced. No one should be sentenced to more years than the number of years that they were alive upon the commission of their crime, and even so, like, if you're going to sentence me to the amount of years I was alive, then you should have to prove that I'm heinous and I'm
like you're a psycho or a sociopath. Everybody should be evaluated, because that's the thing. Because right now they have it where somebody under certain ages, you only get sentenced to 2 years. That was the raise the age stuff. What we're saying is, okay, that's great, that's fabulous, but science has shown, plus especially somebody in my situation, Trey's situation, 19 and 21, we have experienced trauma, so our frontal lobe decision making, right and wrong, flight and flight, is different from your normal raised upbringing kind of person who doesn't experience any trauma or just regular life trauma. And the 25 and under bill is really to address that and say, if DOC hasn't corrected a youth under or a young adolescent from 25 or under in 10 years, then they need to be out of a job.
Right, the DOC needs to be held accountable, because then we're talking about...
DOC raised her, so she's screwy and messed up. It's DOC's fault, not her parents. And this is what they did. And like, her dysfunctionality, her incapability of knowing how to do computers and things like that. Not you, Trey, but you know what I'm trying to say, right? That's her fault. So when you get somebody who's been in jail for 5 years, they come home and 30 days later, they're back in jail, that's DOC fault, not that individual's. Because the first time... Yeah, because a first offender doesn't have to ever be a repeat offender. And that's my point. But you can you can go ahead, Trey, talk about the bill. But I know he asked the question a long time ago, so I want to say this so I get out my breath. Onceincarcerated.org is our website. Once Incarcerated is our Facebook page, and you can email us at onceincarcerated@gmail.com, and our phone number is 860-829-9920.
It is a text-only phone number.
Text only. 860.
Be clear.
829-9920. And our Once Incarcerated Anonymous meetings are for formerly incarcerated people. And if enough family members come on, we could put you in your own group. Hopefully, I'm hoping we get enough people. Right now, we have increased our regular people who come on Saturdays has increased to about 15. We would like that to be 50, because I would like a subgroup of people who have what we call in jail terms a body, right?
Yep.
Because we suffer like veterans. It's a different kind of thought process when you have someone that you took away as part of your crime, and we need a different type of atmosphere as someone who actually committed that crime.
In those meetings, they can be found on the website, or how can we link someone up to find those meetings?
So you can email us at onceincarcerated@gmail.com, or you can call that number that Larry said that I said is text only. And
829-9920.
And we will send you the link. We just ask that you tell us I was formerly incarcerated, because that's an important component. We like to make sure that it's a safe haven for formerly incarcerated people. And that's currently on Saturdays.
What time?
At noon. Eastern time.
Yeah. Oh, you can get on.
Yeah,
I definitely can.
Yeah, and we'll send some people your way as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You read my mind.
Yeah.
You read my mind.
Yeah, I was just like, they keep asking us to tell us the information. We just keep talking about the website, but we forgot the email. So go ahead and now talk about the 25 and under bill. Go on, take it from here.
No, so that's back to the 25 and under bill, right? So we want to especially address people that are currently over incarcerated. So this bill, we want it to be retroactive, probably to go back until about 1980. And so anybody who has served more years than a number of years that they were alive at the commission of their crime, which there's so many women in York, I know specifically. I know people that were arrested in 1993 with me that are still there and that were 18 years old.
Or 15.
And so this bill would essentially release them. It would release all of them. And so And the thing about this is that people don't understand, like, well, why is it so important to release these people? Like, they committed crimes. This is the naysayer, right? They did this, they did that. Well, a lot of these people are elderly now. A lot of these people have a lot of medical issues. And to be honest, even though they may have committed a crime a long time ago, they're not the person that they used to be. And their families are waiting for them. Like, people don't realize that when we get arrested, we're not the only person that's punished. Our families are punished. You know, there's and a lot of those people are mothers. I wasn't a mother when I went in, so I didn't leave children behind, you know, but Larice was a mom and did leave children behind, not by choice, but, you know, and so these people have kids waiting for them. They have, there's so many things that we just have to be who we say we are. Society is like a liar because they're constantly saying that they're so forgiving and Christian and just, you know, like, we believe in all this stuff, but when it comes down to it, we don't practice it. We say it sounds good, and when we need forgiveness, we'll be the first one to say, well, you know, everyone should have forgiveness. But when it comes down to looking at something that we don't understand, you know, before I went to jail, my aunt was raped and murdered when I was a little girl. So I hated murderers. I thought that they were I thought they just waked up to commit murder. Like, I didn't know that they were regular people and that they, you know, things happen and whatever. Until you're actually in a situation and then you get to know people that are incarcerated. I mean, I had 23 years of hearing other people's stories of how they got there, their lifestyles up until then. And I think if the court system took more time looking at people's histories and epistemologies, that they would understand that a lot of these people don't need to go to prison. What you need, like Larice said, is better programming from the start. Our school systems need to stop with the holding cells, and you're preparing kids for prison, not for college. And, you know,
I know, instead of the SRO budget and the holding cell budget, why don't you put that money towards arts and new books and free iPads for the kids to take home and do an art project, you know?
Pre-entry rather than re-entry.
Pre-entry, right. And that's pre-entry to college.
That's what, you know, one of my big takeaways is really education. And you guys are doing such a wonderful job getting out there and doing it. So my brain is beginning to shut off after the day. So I'm going to ask you guys our final question that we love to ask all of our guests here. And I want both of you guys to answer it separately. So we're the Following Up podcast, right? We like to help people follow up. If you were looking at a friend, family member, or just a fellow human being who was falling down and didn't know it was possible to get back up, what is one piece of advice? If you could give them one thing, what would you tell them?
it has to be one word.
No. Just
just one piece of advice. Like,
one piece of advice.
Yeah.
What would it be?
Somebody come on the call on Saturday at noon, and they say, I'm in the bottom. I gave up. What do you tell that person?
Oh, okay. This is an easy one for me.
All right.
So I always tell people, when I'm at my worst, I think of so say today something happens horrible, and I'm like to the point where I want to like self-harm and all that. I sit down and I remind myself of other stuff that I have been through that I did not think I could get through. And then once I remind myself of that, and I'm like, it sort of gives me a strength. And so I would say, remind yourself of something that you didn't think you could get through and you got through. And think about if you would, and something that like had you to the point of suicide. If you would have killed yourself at that moment, all the things that you would have missed. Because that's what I think about. I think about if I had succeeded, because I tried to kill myself, I hung myself, and I am so lucky to be here today, but I think that's what I would say. I would say, think about the worst thing that you ever got through and how you didn't think you were going to get through it, whether it was jail, whether it was some traumatic event, whatever it was, and you got through it. So if you have the strength to get through that, then don't what's out now. You know what I'm saying? You can get through anything. And not only that, share your story. Because if you don't share your story, people are going to continue to think that normal is only what society accepts and is allowed. Normal is really way different than anybody has any idea, because we were taught throughout history and our families to keep stuff under the rug that is not pretty. So if we start teaching people, talk about it, because you can save lives talking about it. If I hide my stuff, people could die right now because I didn't share my story. But I shared my story, so somebody might not kill themselves right now. You know what I'm saying? Some family that loves their daughter or son might still have their daughter or son for years and years because they heard my story. So your story is just as important. To put it out there, have people understand you're not alone. We're not pieces of crap. Everybody makes mistakes. And the most important thing is they don't all get caught for them. So just because we wear our crimes on our sleeves and we were publicly, humiliated because of our crimes, this whole world, that's what normal is. Normal is everybody commits crimes. That's normal. Whether it's speeding, whether it's you drank a beer and you left the restaurant before the hour was up, whatever it is, people just don't acknowledge their own stuff, so they're busy looking at other people. But if we expand that, and we get people to acknowledge, like, yeah, I did this, I did that. It's not to say it's cool to do, but it's to say, I'm not a liar. I'm not afraid to admit who I am, and this could help somebody else.
Use those reference points and develop some empathy.
Yeah.
I like it. Larice, how about you?
I always tell people to pave their pain into power. Like, it's really that simple. And, I tell people that people always ask me, how do I survive my moments? So this is how I survive my moments. I have so much faith. I have faith in God and the universe and your ability to create your own happiness, so much so that it actually brings me to tears how much faith I have. Because I would not be able to have overcome anything if I didn't believe in something greater than me to help me through it. This world don't always make sense, okay? People do some horrific things to you. But when you look at it through spiritual eyes and be like, okay, I must be doing something right because I'm being attacked on this end. Or, you know what, I'm going through this because God wants me to, thank you, God wants me to remember to lean on him and not my own understanding, because I'm not going to understand the cruelty of society. Remember, I've been dealing with this for 22 years. And the first time I ever felt normal was talking to Tracy in 2019. And so how I overcome those moments is through faith. I am the creator of my happiness. No matter what I'm going through, there's always somebody going through something worse.
Ain't that the truth?
And if I help somebody else in their situation, while I'm going through my situation doesn't seem that bad. And not only that, I gain more power, more internal esteem, more faith in myself, and my trust my instincts more. When in the moment that I'm in a struggle, I'm helping someone else get out of their struggle because of previous experience, like Tracy said. Lets me look at my current situation and go, you know what? That ain't bad. I done did this one a couple of times. So what's the lesson? So I don't have to do this one again because I'm not going back. But yeah, that would be it. Pave your pain into power, because your faith, like I said, I don't care what you believe in. You believe in Satan for all I care. Just know that something's greater than you that can help you come through everything. Pave your pain into power. Every moment, every minute, every hour, you can pave your pain into power.
Pave your pain into power. Well, we very, very much appreciate you guys coming on.
Don't take that pave your pain into power.
I'm going to get sued. I'm not trying to take that.
Quote, so don't take that.
I'm a quote taker, but
just say, by Larice Harvey.
There we go. That's my out right there. But yeah, we appreciate you guys. Everyone, check out all of your organizations. You've done so much. We're incredibly grateful to have you here. I apologize that my brain crapped out like the last 15 minutes of
Man,
this.
it's okay, because we're in the suicide and its impact on the criminal justice system. The ABA, American Bar Association, sent out a book. Tracy and I are in it. We're going to be in another book. I'm writing. Now, this is when you need to bring me back. I'm writing this book called Dating Advice While Being FIP. formerly incarcerated people.
I like
telling you.
that.
Well,
I'm telling you, it's been an experience. When I'm finished writing it, this is when I'm coming back. When I put it up on Amazon, I'm coming back because it's for everybody.
You get in touch with us, we'll have you back. We'll talk about dating with the
Immediately.
formerly incarcerated.
I like that.
Dating while formerly incarcerated.
That's needed.
That's
That's
needed.
needed.
Yes, it
That's
is.
needed. That's
There's a 3-part question thing, and then the 4th one is the surprise. Yeah. When you get to question 3, like not everybody even passed question 1. You'll be amazed. Bring me back. Definitely.
No, we 100%.
We'll be back.
100%.
She also has a book, Button's Journey.
What is it?
On Amazon, Button's Journey, my first 2 years living with PTSD. And I also have a book on there, Button's Journey, my spiritual foundation is praise.
Everybody check it out.
Yeah, send me the
Check it out.
links.
Check it out. Check it out.
Check out my
and-
blog, 23 Years an Inmate.
20, all
yeah,
of
the
that,
blog,
and all
20
of
years
that.
in it?
Yeah.
We're gonna put all this up on social media, so everyone will be able to find it. Once again, thank you guys, and thank everybody for tuning in. We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.
Falling Up Podcast.